Welcome back to the Mackem in the Middle podcast, and once again another match preview ahead of another league game, this time at home to Norwich on Saturday for a 12:30 kickoff. Of course, another game that is broadcast live on Sky Sports, and very shortly we'll get into everything surrounding the game, the build up to it, and of course the ever-awaited score predictions, which never go to plan, but we always do them anyway. So first and foremost, John, like I said, Norwich 12:30 on Saturday. Every game in this league is a tough game, but given the, stereotype is probably the wrong word, but given the stereotypes surrounding Norwich when they're in the Championship, they usually do well. They usually get promoted and come straight back down from the Premier League. It's going to be another tough game.
Yeah, a very tough game. I think, like you say, they're all going to be tough games. Doesn't matter who you play, bottom or top. I think this is probably the first, maybe apart from the Sheffield United game, and even though we didn't get any sort of real answers, obviously because of Daniel's red card, but this is maybe the first test of a very good team, and and how we can do. Obviously, there's probably a bit of pressure on them because they didn't start very well, but also there's pressure on us because the onus is on us. We're at home. We haven't won at home yet. So yeah, it is a massive game.
Yeah, and obviously looking at the result that Norwich have had, like you said, they haven't started well. Their first game of the season was, of course, at home to Wigan, obviously also promoted alongside us. They drew that game 1-1. EFL Cup, obviously they won on penalties. No one really pays too much attention to that. Got beat off Hull, beat 10 men Huddersfield, and then beat Millwall. And then I think it was yesterday or Tuesday, I think they got knocked out of the second round of the EFL Cup on penalties. I think it was to Bournemouth, I think, if I'm correct. So it was a slow start. Obviously, they've started winning games since. Obviously, like I say, that Millwall game, that Huddersfield game. And again, it's still at that stage of the season where results don't mean too much. Positioning doesn't mean too much. Obviously, they are below us in the table. I think they're currently 8th or 9th. So it's one of them games that, on paper, at the start of the season, you'd have probably looked at and think that's probably going to be one of the toughest games we have all season. But at the same point, they've only just started to find the legs. They've only just started picking up points. It's probably not the worst time to play them.
No, it's not. I mean, their results have picked up slightly. But if you can hang your hat on any bit of sort of maybe a little bit of positivity, it's the fact that obviously they play midweek, we didn't. Albeit they might have changed their lineup, which I think they did. But even so, to go, they've obviously gone the distance, gone to penalties, and lost. So there might be that, that slight, negative. That's maybe something little that we can hold on to. But they're probably gonna relish coming here because it's going to be a big game. Like you say, it's on Sky. They're playing really well. I think they probably found. Obviously, I don't really know anything about Norwich, but I think they've probably, turned it around quickly. Normally when teams come down, obviously we've seen it with us, even though we were probably a lot poorer than Norwich were. When we got relegated and it was sort of a free fall, and we can turn it around at all. Whereas Norwich, albeit a couple of results seemed to have turned it around sort of slightly. So, it's going to be a good game toe to toe. But like I say, you never know what either team's going to bring, and that's us or them. We saw the Stoke game. I was there. To me, it wasn't very good. It was a hard fought one. I think when we're at home, it's going to be a little bit. The onus is on us to go and create, as opposed to sitting and maybe take one or two chances. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds.
Yeah, and obviously Norwich are an interesting team, I think, especially to watch this season, because they've got this squad that they seem to have had forever for a large part of the players. There's Tim Krul still there, Max Aaron's still there. Obviously, he was linked with some fairly big clubs in the season when they got relegated from the Premier League. I think Tottenham were after him, possibly Liverpool as well. Obviously, nothing actually came of that. He stayed in Orange. Likes of Grant Hanley, Kieran Dowell, obviously Timu Pukki, he is getting on a bit. He's still there. So they've got a very similar squad to what they've had in previous Championship seasons, in previous Premier League seasons. But obviously the one player that they don't have anymore, which is probably the best player they've had in years, if not, for as long as I've been alive. Obviously Buendia, who signed for Villa a few seasons ago, a few transfer windows ago. I'm not actually sure when it was. But it'll be an interesting game because I don't think their team on paper is any better than our team and probably a lot of the teams in the Championship at the minute.
No, I probably get what you're saying. I think you've got to look at it and think, games aren't really won on paper. I've seen a lot of comparisons since the start of the season saying, well, our squad, is no worse than probably anyone else's. We know that someone out of nowhere will raise their game against us. And, we saw it in League One where they turn up. I've never even heard of one of their players. Yeah. And then they raise their game sort of 20, 25% and sort of take us apart, a little bit.
I mean, not that we hadn't heard of him, but I think Chris Maguire is the perfect example of that, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
No goals all season, comes to the stadium late, gets a hat-trick, does nothing for the rest of the season, then gets banned from football.
So. Yeah, literally hasn't done anything. So that's what I mean. We always come up against, those types of players. But the only thing with Norwich is I think they've given chances to their, sort of Pookie's not really getting in. And even though he's done sort of quite well and scored goals in the Premier League. But it's a case of, when you do come down, even though you've been Championship, Premiership, and then back to the Championship, can you then re-raise your game and think, right, I need to go again? I think they're very much, maybe a bit of an imbalance there. Can they keep that going? But again, it's all to see. But, I'm definitely looking at our side and not their side and thinking, right, what can we do? Because I think we definitely need to get that home win in, sooner rather than later.
Yeah. No, so our record against Norwich of all time really is not the best. I think we've played about 60 and lost half of them. I think we've won. According to this, we've won 19 out of around 60. It's too early to do maths. So the last game, obviously between the two sides, obviously back in the Championship season. We drew 1-1 in April, and then August of 2017, which feels like a lifetime ago now. We won 3-1. So recently we haven't done too bad against Norwich, and like I say, they are a team that tend to do well in the Championship. Whenever they get relegated, they are one of the favourites to go straight back up, and they will be up there come the end of the season, top 6 minimum, possibly top 2. Obviously, I've said to a few people now, I think this Championship season especially is one that, quite frankly, anyone can achieve anything this year, because I don't think there's any team that stands out as a kind of team that will actually run away with the league. So it's going to be an interesting one to look at, but it's a game, like you say, it's at home. I don't think there's too much pressure on Sunderland, again, to get a win in this game. Everyone wants a win. We need to win at home eventually. But it's a game that, again, if you get a point out of, I think there's plenty of positives to take from it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I might just be slightly leaning towards maybe, I wouldn't say pressure, but I'm thinking I'd rather get that win, on that first win, under our belts. I think that's definitely something that Alex Neil will be looking at. Away from home, I'd probably happily snap your hand off for a point. But I think our home games, like you say, if no one's really standing out, I think you've still got at home. You've definitely got to back yourself. I think personally, I'd probably be a little bit disappointed with the draw. But then again, if we do draw, it's a case of then when we go again and away from home, pick up 3 points, then maybe you can say, yeah, fair enough. Whereas that's always maybe let us down a little bit. We'd get a 1-1 draw under Ross or under any other Gerrard managers we've had. And, can we back it up? Can we back it up Tuesday with a win? Obviously, we didn't. And that's obviously where the problem then lies. With Alex Neil, you'd like to think, we beat Stoke. If we then beat Norwich, I think that puts us in an excellent position. And, if we can, obviously there's no real, I don't want to say, it's not the word ambition, but there's no real pressure on us to absolutely beat every single team at the moment. But it's a case of get as many points on the board, get to, obviously get the World Cup out of the way, get back in the swing of things, see where you are sort of January time. Can we then add 1 or 2? And then can we have a go? And I don't see in any way why we can't do that,
Yeah. And also, the starting 11 especially, obviously, hopefully have a few players in by the end of the window. But the starting 11 especially have shown that they can go toe-to-toe with anyone in this league. I think Sheffield United are probably the best team in the league at the moment. They've got, some very good players. Some of them which I wouldn't be surprised if they leave before the end of the transfer window and go to the Premier League. I've mentioned it before, that Sanderberg, obviously being linked with a move to Liverpool. They are in dire need of a midfielder, to be honest. So I wouldn't be surprised if he goes there. So we mentioned, if we get a draw against Norwich, if we win against Norwich, everyone wants it. But I think a lot of it comes down to what the performance is as well. if you draw 1-1, dominate the game, have a goal, have a shot cleared off the line, and they score from 30 yards out. I think that's a very different feeling to if we hold on 1-0 down for 90 minutes, we scrape a last-minute equaliser. There's two very different scenarios if we were to draw the game, where one of them could be potentially seen as a negative and a bit of criticism here and there, but the performance is the main thing I think that people will take from it.
Yeah, it is, and obviously, we could point to the last few games. Obviously against Sheffield United. To be fair, first 30 minutes we played really well. Obviously, after the sending off, we still played relatively well within the circumstances. So even though we lost, it was a bit okay. Imagine what we'd have done if we'd have had 11 men. Then you look at the Stoke game. At times it was a horrible performance. But you've got to have those in your locker to be able to do that and then get the results. But I'm just of the opinion that I think at home, same with QPR. Obviously, we took them apart and they didn't really do anything. I'd expect Norwich to be a little bit more, sort of to have more of a go. But when you do get those 1 and 2-0 leads, then I think it's about tightening up and can we manage the game and see out, and let's not have any, all right, the free kick. You can say that's just one of them, but a goalkeeper scoring's a freak one. But those are the sort of, once you're in that position, you want to stay in that position.
Yeah. Well, obviously Sunderland have made a signing for the first time in nearly 4 weeks. I think it's been obviously Ellis Sims was the last signing we made before Jubison Bennett, who of course was announced earlier this morning. I'd be surprised if he's involved on Saturday. Obviously, he's 18 years old. He's coming to a new country, to a new league. I don't even know if he knows the language, so whether we see him or not, I'm not entirely sure. It looks unlikely at this point that any more players will come in between now and Saturday's game, but there's still a week left of the transfer window. We've obviously been linked with, I think it's Edouard Michou, I think he's called, from PSG. Van Heck, obviously from Brighton. A few other players have been linked here and there, but how many players do you think we actually need between now and the end of the window?
I'd probably go on the, obviously it depends who's available and what he wants to do with, are we maybe thinking about, Winchester going? Obviously it's looking quite likely Diamond's going. So at the moment, I think you'd like to say maybe 3 to 4, and then obviously if you do manage to push, sort of 1 or 2 out, I think they maybe then need to be, as we're pushing them out, we can bring people in that will obviously rival them. I think maybe we do need, to get Kearney out on loan, and I wouldn't be too surprised if we brought in a keeper who's maybe slightly better than Alex Bass, just to put a bit of pressure on Patterson, as in, that someone good is waiting in the wing. So you've got to up the game. Not that he's shown anything to be, that he should be, dropped, but just that little bit of competitiveness. Obviously, I'll probably go back to when we signed, obviously it's quite a left field one, but when we signed Benjani, he's not really going to play, but I think it just put a little bit more pressure on Darren Bent, and I think Darren Bent, to be fair, just upped his game a little bit. So it was, even though Benjani really did nothing for us, it was more, he put pressure, and Bent stepped up his game a bit more, and you could probably put it down as a good signing. So maybe that, obviously there's talk of, maybe Diaku going out on loan. I don't really think Alex Neil fancies him, so that'd probably be a good idea. Yeah. We don't know how the new kid is obviously going to settle in. Obviously, he doesn't speak a word of English by the looks of it. And, by the interview on the site earlier, it does say, he's sort of one for the future. So is Alex Neil really going to trust him in the next 3 to 4 games? I probably wouldn't have thought so. So again, we're probably still looking at 3 or 4. And then if, 1 or 2 do leave, then obviously a like for like. That's what we'd be looking at. But I'm quite excited by what, the sort of players we are looking at. If the people we have signed, in recent times, Huggins, Sirkin, Ballard, those types of players, if we can keep on that trajectory of those signings, then I think it's, I think we're going to have maybe a good week next week.
Yeah. No, so you mentioned signing, like a keeper. There's a few other positions, I think, especially where there's not too much competition at the minute. Obviously, right wing back, Lyndon Gooch is there. You've got Trey Hume who can play there. He's hardly ever featured under Alex Neil, so Gooch's position is very stable. And I think the one thing that I would take away from that is, and it kind of links to what you said, is it just stops complacency, doesn't it? If we bring someone in that can compete for that position and potentially improve us there as well. You say Patterson's there. I don't think you've done anything wrong this season or since he was obviously brought back from loan and kind of chucked in at the deep end when he came back from, I think it was Notts County he was at. I don't think he's done anything wrong, but there is that risk of just complacency creeping in because he knows he's number one, and realistically he knows he will be number one, for the season as it stands.
Yeah, exactly. And it probably goes the same as at the moment. Obviously, we're not seeing Elise play, but maybe someone sort of the left back, left wing back, type of position, to put, Jack Clark under, not pressure, but like a positive pressure, just to say, come on, and let's raise it one or two levels. Same with Sirkin. Again, they've both been decent this season, and it's just we're going to have games sort of thick and fast coming, and we really do need to, have that cover in there. And it's again, we're talking about Ben Jarney and Darren Bent. It's the same with the two struggles at the moment. If we're playing two, they're probably still of the opinion that, well, I'm not really going to come off unless we're 1-0 up with 10 minutes to go and we need to bring a defender on. So I'm practically going to start every week. And not that that's a problem, but again, we need someone else on the bench who's ready to come on, who, in fairness, I think in the Stoke game, maybe Simpson Stewart last 20, which is understandable because of the way we press, flagged a bit. If we want to play the same way for 90 minutes, which sometimes we do, let's have someone who can come on and replicate what those two do. So again, that's another one that we need. And again, it puts pressure, a positive pressure on Stewart, on Sims, because in fairness, they're both, very much in form. We're going to have dips, and we know, there's going to be injuries, and it's a long season. And Ross Stewart can't play every game at 46, like all 46 games. He just can't. So that's definitely one to look at.
Yeah. Well, on the team, I don't think there's going to be too much change from the last few games. Obviously, like we said, Jason Bennett, he is now a Sunderland player, 18 years old, doesn't know the language, hasn't played in the league before. He's not going to start. He's guaranteed not to start. And I'd probably be surprised to even see him on the bench, especially on Saturday, potentially on Wednesday. But I think Saturday will certainly come too soon for him. Dan Neil, as far as I'm aware, he did only have to serve a one-match ban for his red card, so I presume he is back, and I'd imagine he'll probably start in midfield again.
Yeah, I think so. I think, even though he's sending off, which I'm sure they'd have had words behind closed doors about, and I'm sure Neil himself would have known, what the state of play with that was and what he should have done and shouldn't have done. But yeah, for me, I think he slots straight back into that midfield, especially at home, and we want to play that attacking football. Sorry, and Dan Neil fits that. The midfield, even though we was away at Stoke, the midfield for me just wasn't great. Matete couldn't really hold on to the ball. Obviously, second half when, by all accounts, Corey Evans is really struggling at the moment, so he can only sort of play, a half or half an hour. Came on and totally, I'd say, mainly controlled the game. Second half. So ideally he's had a nice break this week, and we're able to maybe get sort of 70 minutes out of him, and with Dan Neil, because the midfield at the weekend was horrible. And obviously then do you change the defence back to to what it was second half, because in fairness it was it stopped a lot of a lot of attacking threat that Stoke had, sort of 5 strikers on the pitch, and they didn't have one shot on target second half. So it's do you start Bailey Wright, or do you revert to Luke O'Nien? It's very much an up in the air, but I'm sure you would have seen them in training, see how they are. There's probably a few walking wounded, and obviously the bookings are creeping up. I think one or two
very quickly. One
booking away from even maybe a suspension, which at the moment we could do without. But we know a few of them are guaranteed, a yellow card. And I think Luke O'Nien's probably got that stigma now with the referees, with getting away with maybe should have been sent off. So I'm sure that had been picked up on, and
twice this season as well.
Yeah, the opposition are going to be saying, look, watch O'Nien, he makes one tackle, it's in the referee's head. So we've got to be careful of that. He's got to be careful of that as well.
Yeah. In terms of starting 11, I think I would probably guess along the lines of Patterson, Unai and Bart Serkin. Gooch, obviously Corey Evans and Dan Neil back in midfield. They did miss the Stoke game. Obviously Evans came on in the second half and made a real impact. Jack Clark, Alex Pritchard, Simpson Stewart. I don't think there's going to be too many changes from that starting 11, potentially one or two here and there, but the foundations of the team will be very similar to that, I imagine, because quite frankly, there's not too many options at the moment. But last but not least, score predictions for the game, John. I think I would go with a 2-2 draw.
I think in the Championship, with how we're playing at the moment, I think you just got to back yourself at the moment. And even though I think Norwich will come and will bring a threat and maybe try and go against us, I think we are a very, very good attacking team. And with Stewart and Sims up front, I think that's probably one of the best striking combinations in the league, even though we've only just been promoted. So I'd always back us. And I think I'd probably go for maybe a 2-1 win, but any win at home, I will take that.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we will be back with another podcast, of course, on Sunday, talking about Saturday's game against Norwich, reaction to everything that happened, player ratings, and of course a brief look ahead to Wednesday's game after that, which is Reading, I think it is, isn't it? Off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Obviously an 8 p.m. kickoff on the Wednesday. I think it's on Sky as well, that one, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it is. We're on Sky every week because we're massive.
We are absolutely gargantuan, is the word that we will use for that. But like I say, we'll be back on Sunday to talk about the game. And of course, if any new signings come in between now and the end of the window, which I like to think they will, we'll obviously have podcasts out to discuss them, get the opposition view, try to get the view from the opposition that we've signed them from to see what we can expect of them in the first team at Sunderland. But until next time, we will see you later.
That's all, folks.